I mean, that is I mean, guaranteed, absolute requirement BKB play, but the Weaver, even if you don't get the Shikuchi damage with the BKB active, it still gets you directly on top of that sniper. The Earth Spirit roll still gets you in his face, so I don't know, that one feels really risky for Team Team. Maybe this is part of the reason why they get the Undying for some sort of bailout play with the Soul Rip, but even that feels kind of like you stitched that together maybe last moment as opposed to a more fleshed out game plan. I'm not really sure, but that sniper is a big risk. If they can find the farm on it, we know how much damage it can do. It's just, I don't know how safe it'll be.
Yeah, and the bigger problem that I'm having with it is, okay, I understand what you're going for. Sniper Undying in the top lane, Mars Maran in the bottom lane. You have incredibly strong lanes. You're going to be very disruptive. Undying, again, for the same reason that Undying Weaver would have been nice here, you are always doing a lot of damage to these heroes. You're always able to get those peeps out, so you do a lot of damage in lane. I think that in the long term, though, you are definitely going to be a liability that now Brax is going to have to cover for you. He's going to need to start the fight so far away from you that I don't think Sammy Boy is even going to be able to show up in that first wave. I think he's really going to be more of a second thought. And that's where I think Infamous, if they hit their mark, it is so simple. You have Soul Rip. That is your save right now. There's no Shadow Demon. There's no Abaddon. That's where we saw just a few minutes ago so many teams valuing that Abaddon save for a very good reason. I don't think Undying really ticks that box. So unless this lane goes fantastically for them, and it really needs to, it's going to feel really bad for them. That's where, again, they had to ban two spirits out because of how kind of early this sniper pick was, because usually we don't even see the sniper in this phase. We see it as your last overall. We see it as a reactionary pick to the carry, where they don't even know what the carry is. In Infamous, they've got all the time in the world if they want to swap around their lanes, look for an off laner, look for another mid laner, try to steal something away from Team. I think right now they're deciding if Alone's hero is going to be this Monkey King, or if they want to pick something that Relia would really love. They've really been on point with these bans because four of the best mid laners already taken out of the pool. This is going to be hard to get Relia on actually something that's going to be effective, because yeah, I feel like he also needs to win his lane with the way that Team set up. If they win 3 lanes, okay, you're playing Dota. You win 3 lanes, you're probably going to win the game. But I think Rioya specifically it's so important for him to actually win his game. Maybe they look for a hero like the Viper for him, but we'll have to see.
And the thing is, you want someone who can win their lane, but with the sniper, presumably, shuffling off into the jungle to sort of farm up and continue his build up, you're going to be looking to the Mars and whoever your mid laner is to then be maybe your more actionable heroes, your playmakers around that mid game stage. So you want someone who can win the lane, won't get ganked, can still make plays for himself later on, and the number of heroes who tick all of those boxes simultaneously is kind of slim, and some of the ones that do exist have already been banned out. So I feel like if you're team, maybe you just have to pick two of those three categories and roll the dice, but for now, we'll see what Infamous look for first. They have used a lot of this time to think this one over, and I mean, they've got so many options to work with. As you mentioned, ET, they can switch up so many of these laning setups.
Okay.
All right.
They swap it
Sacred Nature's
around, and
Prophet.
best hero versus sniper, or one of the best heroes versus sniper. There you go. Global teleport. You're always able to get on the backline. Another natural tombstone hitter as well, and a hero that is gaining a lot of traction, especially over in those EU pubs right now. It could go anywhere at this point. It's really hard to call. It could be a Sacred Weaver and then a Michael A. It's really easy to call the supports on Infamous usually, but calling their core is a lot more difficult. They do this all the time. They're always hiding their strategies, and they're so flexible with their players. It could go anyway at this point. In DP.
Okay.
Okay.
Busting out the Death Prophet. Second time today we've seen it. First time around, it worked out pretty damn well for the team that picked it up. Team hoping for a similar result, and Ryoya on Death Prophet is certainly a pairing that he should be at least somewhat comfortable with, but what is going to be the actual laning matchup here? It looks like Alone picked up the Prophet,
Mhm.
Lumiere, Monkey King, and Sacred on the Weaver. So they
Thanks,
do, in
guys.
fact, switch things up a little bit from maybe what we originally had been anticipating.
Yeah, and I think with the Death Prophet selection, it makes it so you can't really put the monkey mid, you can't really put the weaver mid, so we have to kind of sit with it. They did a good job of retaining that flexibility if they did need to mess with their lanes reactively, because of course Team did have last pick. I still feel like they're really happy playing against the other four members of Team though. Sure, this Death Prophet definitely threw a wrench in the works, and Mr. Jeans did a fantastic job, but he was laning versus a Kunkka. He was laning versus a hero that is meant to be countered by Death Prophet. Where here, I think that Alone is going to draw the lane. I think that if he ever rotates out, Ryoya is going to take his mid tower, but that's where these lanes are very easily susceptible, where suddenly Alone is playing on top of Brax, your Mars goes down, your sole playmaker is off the map. I think the bigger problem is that everything is now going to fall into Brax's lap. Flea does such a good job on this Mirana, but it is just one arrow. He has one stun. He is completely single target, where I am definitely worried about Infamous flooding heroes. That's where the Earth Spirit Nature's Prophet is going to be so dangerous, because those heroes can show up to those lanes so easily. It takes one teleport scroll, and then suddenly there's going to be four heroes on either the Mars or the Sniper, and then it's an easy kill for him.
And I think the most important part with those heroes, as you mentioned, flooding in, but they can flood in from so many directions, right? Sacred with the Shikuchi can push in. You can roll in from somewhere else. You can TP in behind, and all of a sudden those heroes are in the fight, but not necessarily grouped up to the point where your Death Prophet could get a 2 or 3 man silence down. If they can maintain that separation, then honestly, that makes life so much more difficult for Ryoya, because he then has to pick which of these heroes are you going to try and sort of lock down with his limited control, and then beyond that point, you're just hoping that maybe Brax can bail you out with the arena play. So, good for some hard decisions on their opponent's side. We'll see how things play out. Infamous, well, they pushed out with the early smoke, but this is just kind of for the move speed bonus. They're really not grouped up in any significant way, although the monkey, gotta be careful if that arrow hits, but it won't. So, Flea, I mean, free firing it, there's really no setup there whatsoever, so he was just hoping for the best. But the question I have right now is, do they actually persist with this tri-lane? Is Mike here to try for a first blood play, or will we simply see him TP down bot the second that the bounty runes get picked up?
Yeah, might even see him just walk it in. I really don't think that they want to go for any early engagement here, and usually they don't, especially because you're playing versus the Coddle. It's very easy to just walk onto a bounty rune, and then suddenly you're starting your lane missing another 200 HP. It just doesn't feel fantastic. I think the big problem for Team is that if Infamous do get sneaky, if they do get quick with their plays, and you don't react appropriately, Team need to do a really good job of scouting out what their opponents want to do and then making that call. If they can force Infamous to waste time, that is the perfect situation for them. The biggest problem is when Infamous get a little bit too quick, they'll get a little bit too precise with those movements. It's very easy for them to find those punishes, and unfortunately for Ryoya, gets a small camp blocked and his ward killed. So perfect from A there, even though he did get clipped by the arrow from Flea.
To make that happen, and now, well, they're still, or were still, sort of duking out a little bit, but the Coddle's just gonna get himself out of there with the TP up top, and no actual tri-lane setup. So Mike makes his way down bot, and now kind of interested to see what goes down maybe early on here in this middle lane. For the most part, it kind of feels like this is just going to be farming oriented, but Alone, anytime we see this Nature's Prophet mid, this is always something to sort of keep an eye out on. Yes, you have the Treants here to sort of help you out, but you will now also need to manage them a little bit. Those are 2 extra creeps that are on the field that someone like Ryoya, if he puts points up into the Crypt Storm, might be able to take down. So Alone is going to have to be sort of there on the micro front, but so far he's been perfect. 2 last hits, but 6 denies through the first like wave and a half here. So those concerns minimal at the moment.
Yeah, and of course, it gets much better once you do have a few levels, and at least half of those are just treants, but he's also right on the money, and okay. Really? Just, okay.
Sacking the creep, alright.
It makes sense. I think he actually did do it on purpose. You don't want to be taking too much aggro there. If you are right-clicking under tower, you just get beamed by the tower, but this is where it does become a little bit of an issue. 8 and 8, though. Alone is rocking it, and it just means that Ryoya is going to be at that level deficit where the lane does get much easier, and this is the other problem. Every single time Alone has TP, you get the easy reset. You're just back here. Full HP, full mana.
It's the efficiency game, and a little something that we sort of saw similarly from the Kunkas that Dark Mego kept playing in the previous series. You get that same sort of sense of a quick reset and then you're right back in. Ryoya, though, he does have the bottle delivered out to him, so that's going to help him out a little bit more on the sustainability front, but not quite to the same degree that Alone will have every time that combo is up. But for now, just going to be a split on the water runes. Or there was a play, excuse me, where that Treant attempted to make his way top. Ryoya was able to finish it off in time, though, but that is something he's going to have to be aware of. If Alone can sneak a Treant in to deny one of those runes, then Ryoya's relying pretty heavily on the bottle, and if he doesn't get the refill, then you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and that's where Ryoya's hero does get a little bit more adept at dealing with the Nature's Prophet as you go forward, as well as if you do get Alone on the ropes like he does have right now, you can very simply push into his small camp because Ryoya still doesn't have his, but yeah, bottom. A little bit too low. Punished.
Not even a tombstone play there. Yeah, he was just too low. The shrapnel gets thrown down, and Mike comes in with the decay and the soul rip, I believe, in the middle of not quite a full wave, but enough to get that sort of amplification. And, well, you can throw the voice line out all you want, but Sacred, they did get you. So, first blood on the board for Team Team, and honestly, that's not going to be too much of a setback here for the Weaver. It's unfortunate, but this lane is still going to be going okay for him compared to Sammy. So, setback, yes, not really backbreaking, and you see them already trying to go in onto IX Mike. They're going to roll their way forward. Sacred now comes in for the right clicks, but there's going to be that shrapnel coming down again. Mike just heals himself up with the wand as well as the soul rip, and I'm not sure if he's going to be just fine, but he's able to absorb that damage, and for now that's going to be what matters. As Michael, round 2 potentially, they've got the rolling boulder here, and Mike doesn't have the soul rip mana this time, so they're going to go for it, and this time they should get it.
Yeah, and that's always the threat. Of course, Sammy Boy gets complete lane control. He gets a few denies here, and no last hits for Sacred as of recent, but it still, once you get past those early levels, that's when the Weaver doesn't really care about its lane anymore, and that's all that Sacred is looking for. I think, in addition to the Soul Rip Decay just getting caught off guard by how much damage Shrapnel does, it was not a lot that 730 changed, but definitely enough. And with the Sentry, the big problem right now is that Team have complete Sentry control in the wave, and Michael has been greedy with his itemization. He's looked for regen, he's looked for the stick, as opposed to trying to regain that dominance, and it just means that Sacred needs to play a little bit more careful, where otherwise he would be fine to just sit in these lanes. He just eats so many right clicks when he does go for those Shikuchis.
Michael does have the Sentry up now, but now he needs a clear path to be able to get the D ward down, and Sammy and Mike don't want to give him that. But Mike, I want to be a little bit careful. Michael was in position to maybe go for the kickback play there, but sides against it, that is still a relatively durable Undying that you'd be going into. So instead, they push the wave out, they do get the D ward down, and now Sacred can breathe a little bit easier in this lane. As Michael's going to roll, they want Sammy, they're going to try and go for it. They get the ult in from Alone as well. That is very well timed. Sammy taken down, and now Mike trying to get back to the tower. He does have some stick charges. He should be okay, but Sacred is kind of diving after this one. And yeah, Alone, your HP very, very low. Mike, I mean, he would love that kill, but he is not going to get it. Michael steps in front, gets the rolling boulder stun, and Sacred will finish the job. So, well, honestly, I thought it was just going to be okay with Alone throwing the ult in there, but he TPs forward as well, very nearly pays for it, but is going to net himself and his team a couple of kills there, and at least Ryoya is now freed up in the middle lane for a little while to try and get some free farm, but these are plays that the Nature's Prophet is going to be able to make inherently that your Death Prophet right now can't match up to. Instead, he'll stay in the lane and do what he does best, pop the Exo and try to push for the tower.
And you see how premeditated that is. As soon as he got level 6, he made that play, but that's where Ryoya, 4 heroes.
Stunned up by the Boundless, rolling boulder in, kick back there. They're going to throw down the Sprout as well. Ryoya has no mana left to fight with. Mike tries to come in for the heal, but it's not enough. The arrow flies as well, but it hits no one, and that...
so quick.
Wow, yeah. I mean, 4 heroes into the middle lane for Infamous. They're just there instantly, and the response from Team wasn't quite as fast. You do have to give credit over to Mike and Flea for trying to get in the second they recognized the threat, but that's a 4v1. They needed to get there a little bit faster, and they just simply couldn't.
Yeah, and that's where you don't even want to make a rotation out of your lanes, because Brax and Sammy are winning. very simply, but it's where the more active lineup can definitely start to pull ahead, and that's that sneakiness where you need to scout out Infamous's intentions. If you get a deep ward, maybe you can scout some of these rotations and you get a little bit more prepared and suddenly you can turn, but you get caught off guard like that, your opponents are going to start taking a big lead, and that's where your more vulnerable heroes, it's so easy for Infamous to flood in. It's so simple for them, and when you have this exorcism on cooldown, next exorcism has got to be successful. Otherwise, you're really going to start to see Aurelia fall behind.
In the
Bottom?
meantime, down bot, they are looking for Mike again. They're going to roll their way forward. The aggression just continues. Sacred and Alone are here to provide the bulk of the damage. They even get the Wrath of Nature. There we go. Has to travel pretty much around the entirety of the map before it comes back in to hit up Mike, but it's going to be enough to drop him low enough where Sacred gets the kill, and now this tier 1 tower is just going to get melted away. They've got the armor reduction here with the Blightstone, so yeah, they get the kill and the tower, and now all of a sudden we're 8 minutes in, ET, and we can legitimately start talking maybe about map control with this Prophet continuing to push.
Yeah, and that's where a hero like the Nature's Prophet plays even better versus the Sniper, because as soon as these towers are gone, you lose the laning stage. That's a nice tree break, though, from Brax. That's so nice.
Big kill that they honestly at this point needed just to sort of stop the bleeding. So Brax is able to make a play. That's his first arena, and it will be a successful one to catch Lumiere, who to this point really hadn't been overly involved. He had just been sort of farming up in the jungle, working his way towards, I believe, the Echo Saber. So they're able to sort of stunt his progress just that little bit more, but now you see a little bit of the efficiency play with multiple heroes trying to rotate into the jungle. Michael's going to move mid. If he can get that magnetized, then you got yourself a nice little bit of extra teamfight damage to throw out here, and Michael had already been incredibly involved. He's been in every single kill so far on the Infamous side, so if you give him more tools to work with, he's just going to keep on pushing. Now,
Yeah.
Sacred. That's a Spirit Vessel finished off at the 9-minute mark, so your DP now is not nearly as durable as Riolia would expect her to be if you do get that Spirit Vessel down.
Yeah, and that's where Infamous do this so often with their lineups. Everyone is having a good game, level-wise. Everyone has really been able to spread the love, where Team really have it majorly stacked up on that Mars, and Sammy...
Good catch, Sammy. There's the roll. They don't hit, but they're still TPing in. They get the silence down here as well, so there's not going to be any shrapnel play just yet, but Mike was able to TP, drops down the tombstone, and now Michael's got to go. Can they finish him off in time? No, he's able to TP himself out. His teammates will make the retreat on foot, but that is a big TP in from Mike. The second he touches ground, he throws out the tombstone, and Sammy, without that play, I think he might be dead, and Lumiere's still hanging out nearby. And Sacred, he's here as well. He's going to try to push onto Mike, but there's really not enough damage here for the Weaver to find this alone. But onto Sammy, that may be a bit of a different story. He's trying to harass a little bit, but Lumiere is already sort of pulling back, and feels like their window has closed now.
Yeah, and I think the reason that play goes so poorly is there's a little bit of indecisiveness there from Michael. He wanted, ideally, to kick back the sniper, but Sammy Boy's good movement just got him a little bit too far in front. He had to place 2 stones there to actually get the kickoff, and then your play is kind of dead at that point. I think that's why Alone also cancels, afraid that if he TP's in, he definitely would have been meeting a much stronger team response, and during all that, you lose your mid tower. Went for the deny with the Nature's Prophet, but he wasn't able to get it either. And that's where you're definitely going to see the cores on Team pull ahead a little bit more, because Infamous, they're going for rotations, they're going for the more active plays, but Team who are sitting in their lanes, and if they're not actually dying, they're always going to pull ahead of their opponents. And Brax, 50 gold from a blink, that could definitely be the start of some big team fights that Infamous might not be quite yet ready for.
Once you get that Mars in a position to start making plays, the whole game is going to have its
TPing
dynamic shifted. That is a lot of TP. Sacred is in. That spear, well, it hits onto A, but the delay on the TP actually allows Lumiere to avoid it. The Boundless Strike stun now comes out, and Brax, well, they are going to be able to take him down, but the thing is, they all went in on Brax, which means nobody was there to keep the rest of the lineup in check, so they do pull back, but that is actually big. Brax was, as you said, about 50 gold away from finishing off that blink. He's still pretty much there, but it is going to be delayed a little bit longer, and Infamous, in the interim, will move forward trying to take another tower.
Does he sell the Fairy Fire for Blink Dagger? He wants to be top so badly right now. This should be a team fight for them. They should be able to take that engagement, but they just can't. And Infamous, again, 5 heroes in the blink of an eye. They defend their tower, they kill everyone there. It's just a really quick decision where there is definitely a lack of engagement. Team don't have the heroes to fight up versus that right now. I think for a long time, we're going to see them sit in their lanes as long as they can, and that's where the Natures is so obnoxious to really fast forward this game. Orchid is going to be completed pretty soon here as well for Alone, so that's where even the Death Prophet has to be pretty scared because Ryo's gone for the Boots of Travel. I like that he picked up a Quelling Blade because it just allows him to get out of that Sprout, makes him less of a target, but it's still something you have to be very scared of.
Now, I mean, Sacred's got the Spirit Vessel. You'll have a silence up on your Nature's Prophet, so it is going to be rough. If Team get run at again, their ability to sort of hold their ground is going to be compromised, but at least they're taking as much time as they can right now to farm. You even see, look at this, Mike coming in to help out with a Tombstone as they're looking to get through this sizable Ancient stack, and Sammy, I mean, he just finished off the Maelstrom, but if he can grab all of this stack, that's going to really jumpstart him to that all-important sort of second item for the Sniper. The Maelstrom is not enough for him to feel comfortable in these engagements. He really is going to need that little bit more before he starts pushing in, so we'll focus on allowing him to finish that off while the rest of the team inch their way towards that tier 1, because they sense Infamous kind of poking their heads around, and now there's going to be the jump in onto the Keeper of the Light. They hit him up with the Arena into the Spear, into the Arrow. That's about as easy a kill as they're going to be able to find.
Yeah, and it's one that A really doesn't mind giving up. It's really in the wrong side. They wanted to get a little bit deeper into the jungle there, maybe breach towards Alone, but because they already took the mid tower, you don't really want to make plays where you don't have objectives, and that's why the correct call, just go top, get this last tier 1 tower. Your opponents really aren't going to give you a fight, I don't think, here. If Infamous don't get set up, they definitely don't want to go. Of course, they can get set up very quickly, but they need at least 1 or 2 heroes already there. Otherwise, that flood in is definitely going to be more like a trickle, and that's where Infamous can definitely feed away a lot of their advantage. But it's also where this mid tower is so seamless. Nature's Prophet, man. Just always push down towers.
It's a good hero for doing exactly that, being that constant split push, that battering ram if called upon, and Alone, actually see the itemization now. He is gearing up for fights. Orchid completed, but he wants the BKB afterwards. We're seeing so much of that across really multiple heroes, multiple matchups, different teams. That sort of second or third item BKB is just getting so much more valued and emphasized in a lot of these scenarios because teams know we're going to start hitting that 20 to 25 minute mark. We want to fight and we want to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you're playing versus Mars. It is crushing to put the arena down on a BKB target. Once you have it, you really don't need to be very afraid, as well as probably syncing up with what Lumiere is going for. Lumiere has gone a little bit greedier. He's going for the Deso immediately after Echo Saber. It just means that he's going to be able to play this avoid game a little bit if he has to, and that's something that if Infamous need to adopt, they could definitely force Team all around the map. They can just always play in these side lanes. Monkey King Nature's Prophet is just so efficient. Even the Weaver, to a certain extent, can just be this hero that can sit in lanes, push him out very safely, and gotta be careful. Oh, what a sentry.
Hit him up. There's going to be the Spear stun. Sacred, no time for the time lapse. He's down, and Michael, well, that's a nice rolling boulder to get him on the other side. Alone, meanwhile, throws out the ult just to maybe try and dissuade Team from going any further, but at that point, they already got the kill that they wanted, so that play goes well, and Brax, we mentioned they may rely upon him more and more to be the playmaker, but that is another big play out from the Mars.
Yeah, and they know that they don't need to be too serious right now on the Infamous side. Once the Exo gets committed, that's when the real fight begins, and okay.
Jump onto Ryoya, Alone is in, there's the Boundless Strike into the Illuminate, a lot of damage coming out, but Ryoya's still alive, but there's the Sprout trapping him up, he's able to cut his way through though. And he will be able to get himself out. Now, maybe Team try to turn. Alone is going to look for the TP, and he just barely makes it out. Mike tried to give him one last punch to finish the job, but will not get the kill. But now Sacred is respawning and coming back in. He's going to throw down the Swarm into the Boundless. That's, yeah, just trying to do too much there. If you get the kill onto A, that really is not going to be enough to swing the tides all that much. Instead, they set up for the perfect Swarm onto 2 into the Boundless onto those same 2, and Lumiere cleans up both kills.
Yeah, and it definitely gets messy for Infamous there. Once you go in, it was when they didn't have Spirit Form, they didn't have the Blinding Lights, so they were definitely just going into the Shredder a little bit, but they're still very tanky, they're still pretty durable. I think they probably get that kill onto Ryoya if Sacred actually has his TP, but he was the first one to TP top whenever they killed him initially, but still, they make that play so quickly, identify that the arena's still on cooldown. If they're still in this area, we're going to punish them. We've got top in, we've got mid in, and that's where, again, Team, they need to find these deeper wards. They need to find out where Infamous are actually going to make the call and find them. I think it was pretty simple to realize that the ES is still here. He's still looking at us. And if Michael hits that roll, it gets really scary really quick. But it was a good save from Mike. It was a really nice soul rip.
And well, we said the Undying was really going to be their only save. He's doing a pretty fantastic job of it. Maxed out soul rip kind of helps on that front, but not enough to really save that last fight entirely, but been making some pretty big plays here. And now he's trying to sort of hunt something down in the jungle. Not really going to find anyone, but over on the other side of the map, Ryoya did just get jumped in on. There's going to be that Spirit Vessel thrown down onto him, and this Death Prophet is not getting away. Lumiere even coming in with the boundless at the end there just to make sure Ryoya wasn't really going to be able to cast anything. So Team go looking up top, but that means that they leave Ryoya alone, not really even in a vulnerable spot. That's their side of the map. Near the triangle should be safe, but Infamous just sort of swarming around with so much movement on these heroes are able to take advantage of even a slight misstep like that.
Yeah, and that's where they just get in the middle of your lineup. The pecking order there was supports with Sniper, Mars trying to connect, and Death Prophet trying to connect, and they get the target that's just a little bit too far out, and they are always going to be looking at those. Lumiere specifically, he's really known as that hard farmer whenever he gets those hard farm heroes, but on a hero like Monkey King, he really likes making those rotations, and really all the contribution there was just a single boundless strike, but that is just enough, especially with the buildup that really has gone for. Not looking at the Yule Scepter, not looking for some of those other small items, no wand. He's going for the Kai Sanj, which is an important item, but it's not a BKB. It's not going to help you. He needs to find an armor item as well somewhere along the line where this Deso is so annoying. The Deso and the bugs, if you take an extended fight, your armor is going to be in the negatives.
I do like this play out, though, from Team. However, you got a Force Staff up in the Mirana, you got a Hurricane Pike for the Sniper, so they recognize, well, as they try to jump in onto Sacred, they've got the Silence, but they need to keep him locked down long enough to prevent that. There's going to be the time lapse coming out. Sacred keeps his cool and gets away.
They got to go do Roshan now.
Yeah.
They're forced. If they don't get anything, they have to do this.
After Duration on Exo, they even throw down the Tombstone. Not taking any chances. They want this fight, but hey, well, he's going to try and make something happen here. Sending in the Illuminate. Michael is in position to try to roll, and the cores are making their way over. Nice pushback there as well. The Swarm flies through. This is going to get a little bit awkward because Exorcism's running out of time, but Brack's pushing forward, getting the Spear stun down. They've locked down Sacred. They need to be able to keep him locked in place, and they do exactly that. So they will find that first kill, but now there's going to be the roll-in from Michael, dropping the Magnetize. Sammy's dropping low, but the Force Staff gets him onto high ground, unfortunately directly into the waiting arms of Alone, but Alone doesn't have the damage. He's going to be taken down first. Michael does roll forward to finish the job, but it's cost Infamous pretty much everything they have, and yeah, Michael's going to be taken down. Lumiere's the only one to get away, so you stop the Roche attempt, and you do kill Sammy, but giving up 4 heroes to make that play happen seems a little excessive in terms of the price tag.
Yeah, and it's really good from Flea. His itemization is always so on the nose. He has a Force Staff, Sammy Boy has a Force Staff. They get him really far out of the engagement, but also after that attempt onto Sacred, they place down the Vision. They get to take the most important hill in all of Dota, and Infamous never reclaim it. The entire reason Sacred goes down here is because they see him. Plain and simple. They know exactly what's going on. They have the vision of him. If Sacred's able to be this chaotic weaver in these fights, I don't think they can actually deal with the team fight that occurs afterwards. It's finally that hero that is very simply able to get on the sniper and force those engagements, but now this is really awkward. Lumiere also using his Wukong's command so early, it didn't really hit onto anyone. He thought they were going to stick onto Sacred maybe a few moments longer, but they kill the bug and then they move on to other targets, and now this Roche is still too low, though. This is still an objective that everyone has to consider.
Infamous are starting to sort of fade away from it a little bit, falling back further to the east right now, but you do have that TP in from Alone, but Flea is here to, okay, well, was there to spot it out, but it's going to get knocked back, but This is where things are going to get incredibly tense. Both sides know they really don't want to just give this up to their opponents for free. Roche is slowly but surely starting to regen, but even just the first Aegis. The first Roshan, as we mentioned, at this point in the meta is sort of weaker than it's sort of ever been before, but they still want it. They're going to push in for it. Roche dropping low. Is there a response from Infamous? They're going to send the swarm in. And Alone snatched it. He jumped in. What? Sammy, he didn't make space for it. Wasn't able to pick it up, and now this fight's going to get incredibly awkward. The roll forward from Michael. He throws down the Magnetize. He will die, but Lumiere's now in the backline. He's going to throw out the Wukong's command. They do burn through that first life, however. Now are they set up to take him down again? They are with the spear stun. Lumiere needs to try and get over to help. Sacred's coming in now as well. And Sacred...
Yags.
There's the Yags play. He actually gets the time-lapse onto his teammate. And this is it. It's time for TEAMTEAM to clear out. Brax has to go. He's not going to be able to make it, though, as he will fall. Lumiere cleans up Ryoya. Now the silence onto Flea coming in from Alone into the Wrath of Nature. And Flea, not quite dead yet, but he should tick down to the DOT if nothing else. Yeah, Sacred's able to get it, and Sacred, what a play. He was working on that Ags. He was able to finish it off, rushes in time, and that time lapse is really what keeps that entire fight from falling apart, because Alone should have been dead. But they're able to save him, and now Lumiere's going to get saved as well. Bound the Strike comes out, pushing onto IX Mike, and the Undying doesn't even get the chance to soul rip himself as he will fall. They should be able to clean up the Tombstone here as well, and Infamous, well, that was maybe unintentionally, but pretty much perfect. They take the Aegis away. They don't get the kill onto Roshan themselves, but the fight that follows is incredibly impressive from them. Uh-oh.
Oh, and he's got BKB TP if he really feels pressed here, but...
He wants to bait. Michael's rolling in. They get the silence, double silence, in fact. They are going to try and make the play. Meanwhile, further to the west, Lumiere jumps in onto Sammy. They blow him up. Ryoya TP's in, but without the Exo, doesn't quite have that same degree of intimidation. And now these heroes, they're kind of trapped in between the two halves of this pincer. But Infamous, maybe for the best there. They had used some resources to get into the fight initially. Alone was not in a great place to continue the fight. So they back off instead, and honestly, they back off knowing they got the kill that they wanted. The most valuable, really, of all those heroes in Sammy Boy. And they can take him down. They continue pushing onto the tower, which Alone is able to finish off. And their net worth lead takes another big step forward.
Yeah, and it's the second time where they get caught off guard by this BKB. That was Lumiere simply walking at the sniper. I'm sure Sammy Boy was saying, what's this guy doing? He's going to die. Pops the BKB, kills him, hides in the trees. His teammates aren't able to follow up. I think TEAMTEAM are trying to do too much right now. They need to take a step back. They need to wait for their cooldowns, really evaluate how they need to get into these fights now that BKBs are on the table, because right now they haven't found an initiation. They've been playing way too reactively, and while they've been getting trades specifically on the Infamous supports, the cores right now are starting to run away with the game, and you really have to be way more considerate. You start throwing away too many more of these fights, and then the game is going to be out of your grasp. Specifically, get Sammy Boy this BKB as fast as you can, because you look at Ryoya. Ryoya's gone back for a Ghost Scepter. He really feels like he needs to go for a lot more of these defensive items before he can actually be that frontliner, and I think that's where this game might really start to slow down and struggle for them, because you're playing versus Monkey King. If you ever try to get on these objectives, we've got the Wukong's command, and we're going to look for that engagement. And you can't go on one hero either, because you're going to get saved. This would be a big pick on Lumiere, though. Oh, Brax?
Oh. Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he used the Quelling Blade, but he still had the Arena, but maybe didn't feel he was going to be able to get the placement or the timing sort of down in the way that he would have needed to, but that's a bit of a missed opportunity, and now Mike's just been spotted. Michael's hitting him up. Here comes Alone. Actually, not just yet. Not going to TP in. The arrow, though, comes out to stun Michael, but with Lumiere in the fight, they're still going to be able to find that kill. Now Alone makes his move. Jumping in. Gets the silence onto the Mars, trying to make sure Brax can't turn around for the Arena. But Force Staffs are going to keep him safe, or maybe not. Michael's still pushing. Silence down. Slow comes in. Solar Bind there as well, but not sure they want to dive the tier 2 at this point, and they will back off. So they still find the pickoff. They get IX Mike, and they're in a pretty solid position now to try and maybe push this lane, but somebody's got to go back up here and actually deal with the creep wave.
Yeah, they got to go back top. Of course, it's a problem that they can solve very easily, but they're very lucky. TEAMTEAM were definitely posturing to try and capitalize off of that arrow onto the Earth Spirit, because again, they need to get some of these kills going in the direction. They haven't been making too many plays since they had that kind of flub in the Roche pit, and it does feel like it's going to be difficult for them to make them, but stuff like this is going to happen. Well, Sammy's got it. Oh, no.
There's going to be another roll. Alone's now TPing in. The BKB pops, so the arrow won't affect him. And Sammy, he is going to tick to the DOT. They will find that kill, but now Michael may be taken down. Lumiere, however, is going to pop that Wukong's. It's not enough to save his buddy, but they're actually looking for a secondary fight, and Team are the ones who now have to retreat. So yeah, Michael dies, but Michael for Sammy, a very good trade. And ET, this is the concern we had in the draft. How can that sniper maintain that separation? Can he stay safe, even with the Hurricane Pike as his second item after the Maelstrom? Right now, it's not enough. He does really need that BKB to be finished up.
Yeah, and worst case scenario, you're a death prophet with exorcism going, sitting in your base. It really is starting to get that bad for them, especially now. You look at the itemization coming out from these infamous heroes. You got a blink on Sacred just so he can always be next to his cores. You got Basher finished up on the Monkey King, as well as a full AC almost being completed by Alone. He's making incredible progress on this NP. And that's where we're still waiting for Team to find those important items. And it's difficult to make the play, I understand, but as soon as they see Sacred, I think that they need to find those immediate jumps. If they're unable to find the pickoffs where the Weaver is just simply playing bottom, he's been bottom for such a long time, and of course Sammy Boy is going to take the farm that he gets shoved into him, but it still feels like they need to find these countermeasures a little bit sooner. There's a lot of separated heroes on Infamous' side. They can join up very quickly, but they have to play apart. You see right now how many heroes are alone on the Infamous side, and Team aren't able to make those deep plays. They've got smokes abound. They've got 3 on their heroes right now, but they're not finding the engagements, and that's a big reason why this lead is kind of happening the way it is.
And the thing is, while they hesitate right now with 4 heroes in the top lane, Alone continues to push. As a matter of fact, once this AC is complete, wouldn't really be surprised if we actually see him maybe just go for that shard just to get the greater treants as well to help out that push even further, because he's going to have a pretty clear path. Team have to really bring a lot of their bodies and resources to one place if they want to try and take these engagements, and that's going to free up so much more room on the map for Alone to operate with.
Yeah, this is where the next item for Ryoya, after the Shivas is actually completed, you look for a huge engagement to follow up Roche respawning. Of course, Roche might have the long respawn timer. We're not sure of when he's going to respawn just yet, but this is a lot of time that a global lineup is able to free farm, and that's where you would maybe want to look for those holes, but I think right now they're grouping up for what could be a smoke on the team side. They've got very defensive vision is the other problem. They've had this great ward, the ward that was scouting out Lumiere before, and they haven't been able to capitalize on it since that missed opportunity. And it really does feel like Infamous are able to play at a much safer pace.
They step away from that ward vision as well before they smoke. So I'm not sure if they knew for sure that it's there, but they at least were
They see Brax.
Oh god, Brax. Good blink away, though. He's going to be able to get out for now, but Michael still wants in, and he's got a BKB, so if he really does want to get right in the middle, there's nothing they can do to stop him as Sammy forced to pop his own BKB. Forestaff's going to get him away, but they're trying to keep the chase on. They're not able to finish him off just yet, but now the lineup is split. IX Mike taken down. Brax has to blink out of his own arena, but the Assassinate flies in onto Sacred, and Sacred wanted to wait as long as he could for the time-lapse, but he is going to be taken down. Now Lumiere has to pop the BKB, go for the Wukong's command, but Ryoya pushing his way in. Exorcism is active. He is trying to dish out the damage, but he's fighting into the ring. It's going to be dangerous for him, and he can't really go directly in. He's got to sort of hang out around the edges, but he is still fighting. Alone is now falling back. Rax is going to look for some sort of spear play, but he doesn't actually throw it out there. And I'm not really sure what else they're going to be able to get. The Assassinate flies through, that connects onto A, but he'll Forestaff himself out of any sort of blink range, and after all of that, honestly, that doesn't go too poorly for Team. IX Mike's the only one to actually die, and they took down Sacred pre-time-lapse.
Yeah, forced out a lot of BKBs. Sacred gets chain stunned there, and they were able to get that vision. If they didn't get the sight from those shrapnels, that team fight becomes terrible for them. They lost control of that hill for just a few moments, but Team were actually able to surge forward, and as split up as that actually was, you only lose Mike. So the biggest drawback is that you are still using your exorcism wholeheartedly reactively. You can't really ever get on the aggressive. We haven't seen Team march up to a tier 2 tower in quite a long time, but you are at least able to hold the line there. And that was a really scary circumstance. Sammy Boy popped his BKB whenever he was maybe half HP. He only had 1,000 to work with, but double Force Staff, again, him and Sammy are really doing a good job of keeping him alive in these really big team fights, and he has to. If he goes down, everything ends for them.
Yeah, they have to just keep that sniper alive, whatever the cost. But now, smoke play coming through. The swarm does hit onto IX Mike, but they were still thinking about it for a moment there. But they will sort of call it off, not willing to push all the way in just in case their opponents knew that they were coming. So, play's not going to quite work out the way that they wanted to, but I mean, they can always go for it again. The double smoke is an option. Flea is still holding on to one, and Mike's got two. So really, they could just group up again if they want to, but right now, you see Ryoya, he's got a TP bot to deal with that split push again. The damage has not been massive onto this tier 3, but every time Alone senses an opening, he is going to go for that exact play.
Yeah, and it is something that Alone does need to be a little bit cautious of when you are pushing in the waves constantly. It is a constant source of income for whoever comes down here, and that would definitely help out Ryoya, who is still looking for a few more items, but he's really kind of becoming that next core. Once the Shivas was completed, he can actually run through that ring. He can feel much more confident in his engagements, and until Lumiere gets an item possibly like the Scotty, it is still difficult for him to ever control him up. And that's actually where Lumiere has sidestepped that build. He's going for the Nullifier instead, and it might catch Ryoya off guard. He has to be so careful. If he runs into a monkey ring like he has been with the Ghost Scepter on, with full confidence, he's not going to get shredded by those monkeys, and then he gets nullified, it's just going to be a dead DP on contact.
Meanwhile, look at how farmed A is. The Force Staff is, okay, sort of what we expect, but he has a full Scythe of Vice up after that. His net worth is about on par with what Brax is working with on the Mars, so they have been sort of giving some farming priority over to that Coddle, and I mean, a Scythe in the right spot, you just shut down the likes of Brax, the DP, even Sammy if he's far enough forward, and your frontline hero is suddenly hexed up and can be easily just sort of focused in and finished off, especially with that Nullifier now complete on Lumiere as well.
Yeah, they've got to be so careful. Of course, because Infamous are still playing like they do have a lead, you'll see buybacks are very rare here. If an opportunity where if Team are playing around that, especially Brax, who is still looking at that BKB but is not going to buy out any of his components. He knows that if he goes down first, he's doing this position for his team. You even look at where he is in relation to the pit. He is definitely trying to be that smoke breaker, and big engagement here. They see it. They got to get the word.
Take down both the Obs and the Sentry. Now they move their way over to the pit momentarily, but not going to commit fully for it. Because at this point, they very rightly guessed that Team kind of guessed what was up here too. They're starting to move heroes over. Ryoya is going to TP onto the tower. Ooh. Very close to getting cut off there as Michael was looking to cancel it. But now, all 5 Team heroes in the middle lane, they'll smoke on 4. Sammy just finished off that Silver Edge as well, so they are looking for really anything that they could find in Lumiere. He's not careful. This would be big for them to find the pickup. There's going to be the arrow flying out. They don't connect. The break is technically there, but not overly useful. Lumiere doesn't want to commit the Wukongs just yet. He did pop the BKB a little bit early, though, so he has to now try and reposition himself. And Ryoya, he popped the Exo, so back to the pit. They've got to go for it.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I don't think he wanted to necessarily pop that Exo. If he gets the Blink Siphon, then that starts. But this is a huge opportunity. You're going to go into the pit. There's no BKB on the Monkey King. This engagement is so difficult, but take a look at bottom. Alone is already putting so much pressure on. This is going to keep Team looking back constantly, but with the tomb down, it's really difficult for them to get into here. Here we go, though.
That's just a straight-up roll-in from Michael. The Hex now comes out onto IX Mike, trying to keep him out of the engagement, and, well, now the Monkey King is into the pit. He'll take down Roshan. He'll grab the Aegis for himself. They'll now clean up the tombstone. Actually, they won't. They don't finish it off just yet, but they get everything they want out of that. And at this point, Michael, look at him go. He's still rolling in. He's going to be able to find the kills while Alone, he finishes off nearly an entire lane of racks, so his teammates just keep the opponents at bay. And this is going so horribly. Sammy just got clipped by the stun, and Alone TP's in to finish him off. Now it's just get the hell out of Dodge for the side of Team. Pull back with anybody still alive. How does every single aspect of that go wrong? They don't get Roche. They don't get the fight. They don't defend their bottom lane. Infamous just roll them on 3 or 4 different fronts.
And that was so well played by both Sacred and Michael. You're able to get the time limits out. He still has the BKB going, but you just see him get shredded by the sniper. But as soon as the ES goes in, you have to respect it. You pop the BKB early on that sniper. And at first I thought it'd be fine. They're just getting the bottom racks. They're trading it for Roche. But everyone on the team side ran out of the pit because they were afraid of that ring, a ring that wasn't even covering the entirety of the pit. Brax was unable to get an arena down either, and not only does Lumiere get the Aegis, he gets to keep the Aegis, and you get bottom racks. That was just the worst case scenario for them. And now you don't have Exo.
They're going for even more. They want the top lane as well. So tier 3 towers already fallen. Yep, there we go. That was a big one on pretty much everybody's side, but it's Infamous who have most of the DCs. Almost all of their lineup drops out there, and we will give this one a pause while we wait for 4 players to reconnect. That was a rather sizable lag spike, and not at an ideal time with this push still ongoing.
Yeah, well.
Well, not
okay,
dead
we
just
die.
Yet.
Okay. But yeah, I think this is very easily going to be a Rax for them. You got to find some initiation on Brax here. If you don't find it, everything just ends. But I can't believe Lumiere. It's a suicidal play, right? You go into the pit without BKB, you put the Wukong's command down, and everybody is looking at you. You have a tombstone down, giving vision of the Monkey King during that entire engagement, and you're unable to punish him. And then Ellen's just going to BKB it. Okay.
Yep.
There you go. 2 racks.
No way to get through that BKB, so he'll just TP away afterwards. And yeah, that's, well, technically not quite 2 lanes, because the ranged Rax is still standing, but it's a ranged Rax with 168 HP. These creeps might be able to finish it off if Sammy doesn't clear him out. So much control right now. They've got the Aegis. They've got 2 lanes up. They've got Aegis still in the hands of their Monkey King. So if you're team, you're starting to run out of options already. Their team fight is not quite what they need it to be, but they're going to have to scrape together something here, because Infamous, I mean, you got to assume they're going to be looking to press this advantage. They've still got that Aegis up for, what, 2-3 more minutes, and you've got the ever-present push from that Nature's Prophet to sort of back you up as well. Oh, Rioya.
They're setting up top.
Not afford to lose either him, honestly, or Brax here as well. But it looks like they're going to go for the easier kill. They'll take Flea instead. Fair enough. I think, honestly, they probably could have gotten away with jumping in onto Rioya, but they're not quite giving up on that. Look at Lumiere doing a little bit of scouting out here. That Death Prophet has the TP, but there's going to be the Boundless. Into the Bash, into the Silence, into the Hex for good measure. And the good news there, Rioya has money for buyback. He was able to save on that front. So they can still get him back in, but that is not what they want, because it's definitively going to pin them back in a defensive position. Now you see Sammy using his invis actually to clear out from his own jungle.
Yeah, he has to be terrified. He knows as well that if he gets forced to use his BKB outside of the base, he can no longer walk up to the racks. He is going to be too close to heroes like the Nature's Prophet and the Earth Spirit, and here is the push. Does Rioya buy back here? Or are they going to play on Megas?
Very well may have to. There's going to be the Wukong's out, and Lumiere with the level 25 talent has the extra ring, so look at this. Team just have to stand on the edges, but while they do so, their racks are being taken. Tier 3 tower has gone down. Ranged racks is dropping. Brax, though, good play to try and get in there. He knocks Lumiere back, but the damage is still being done at this point. It's not enough to finish anything off, but they got through the tower. They knocked the melee down to half, and there's no real consequences there whatsoever, outside of maybe having to use an ultra to it.
Yeah, they used the BKB, they used the Wukong's command, but more importantly, Team didn't have to use Rioya's buyback. Brax, really good play there, able to push the Monkey King actually out so Sammy Boy can do his job and try and right-click, but even Sammy Boy, he's stuck on the edge. He can't play in the ring. He has to be always so far away, and you would love to have this Scotty right now. You need to make it more difficult for Infamous to approach you, but you don't just need Scotty. You need, like, Scotty, Mjolnir, Satanic, Daedalus, and then maybe you can forever keep them on their wits' end, but that's where this game, it's just been such a huge opening for Infamous. It's a combination of things, getting the Aegis, getting the Glyph, and, well, there's Mike.
He was able to reflect that Nullifier. That's a nifty play, but not going to be enough
kickback.
to keep him alive. Meanwhile, yeah, he just picked up that Ag, so he's able to enchant Brax and kick him back. But, well, Brax is going to try and hold his own. They did just cut down a tree on the Monkey King, so Lumiere was stunned up for quite a while. Now he's pinned by the spear, but even if they bring him down, that Aegis, that's going to bring him right back up. Perfectly timed out there, and are they really in a position to take this secondary fight? There's the BKB into the Wukong's command. Now Sammy completely isolated while Ryoya, she's getting hammered away out. He's going to be able to fall back into his own base, but now can the sniper TP back? Yes, he can. So he is going to be safe, and Team will regroup on their high ground, and there's a nice bit of damage coming out onto A. Can they time-lapse him? Yes, they can. So he's going to be able to survive it. Brax, though, just actually went forward for the blink, but he doesn't have the arena. Now he's silenced up, so there's no spear either. This is getting so complicated. Lumiere onto the backline. He takes down Sammy. Sammy is dead with no buyback. And Team, they're going to start to fall apart here. Ryoya desperately trying to get back to the fountain. I think he might just make it unless Sacred can finish him off, but Sacred doesn't have that damage just yet, but they will lose Mike. And Mike actually, that's a dieback from him, so he is not going to be back into this engagement anytime soon. And that's unfortunate, because Team, I mean, they've got to...
Yeah,
okay.
they call it.
I was going to say they had to go there if they wanted to defend, but they'll instead call the GG, and Infamous will take Game 1 of this best-of-3 series, and they do so in, honestly, pretty convincing fashion.
Yeah, and to make it even worse, during that entire engagement, the reason it looked so one-sided and the team could actually take that fight was because very simply Alone was taking your mid-racks during all of that, and there was no chance to glyph, there was no opportunity to defend versus the Nature's Prophet. You had to take the fight, you had to try and kill Lumiere twice, and then as soon as you try to go for that kill on A, Sacred was just there again with the save. He was so good on this Weaver every single time his teammates were out. And then almost the time lapse into the Hex from A, into him force staffing out. Everybody on Team was overextended at that point. Lumiere got to reinitiate, who didn't have BKB, didn't have Ring, but he had already killed Sammy Boy. The order, the everything frontline wise just collapses from Team, and Infamous did exactly what their lineup was meant to do. They jumped their opponents, they tear them apart. They were like a mad dog in this game. They were always able to find those engagements. And again, it goes back to you picked this sniper not knowing what Infamous could put against you, as well as Alone. Really stable, really standout performance. They played a perfect lineup, I think. They did exactly what their draft was meant to do.
Yeah, and my mind just keeps going back to that. That sniper pick was so risky for them. We talked about it at the time. The DP pick afterwards maybe helped alleviate some of those initial concerns, but long-term, it really wasn't enough. The force staffs weren't even enough to get Sammy really out of dodge in every single scenario. So Infamous knew what their target was. Go in onto Sammy. If we take him down, then the team fight's not necessarily over, but Team lose about 50% of their sort of effective strength. So they go in, they get the job done. Alone, I'm actually amazed. He only ends the game with 1 kill somehow on that Nature's Prophet. So go figure. Sacred, who went for the Ags play, ends up with 10 kills. It's just sort of the luck of the draw, so to speak. But Infamous, they play it perfectly. They saw what their opponents were doing, and they just counter it to incredible effect.
Yeah, I think now Team might want to change their opening a little bit. Definitely want to take another look at that second phase, though. I think the Flea Brax lane, of course, it is your most stable lane. Those players are always going to do well, and they did do well. Brax had a 9-10 minute blink dagger. Of course, got delayed a little bit, but regardless, I think they really stalled out in that mid game, and I think that was the big problem. It felt like because of the heroes that they had in the situation their opponents put them in, they stopped making plays, and versus a team like Infamous, you got to keep trying. Even if you're losing, you got to look for those opportunities, and it just felt like Team weren't even taking them. So something a little bit more active in game 2.
Yeah, need to try and be the squad dictating the tempo in that next game. Otherwise, Infamous could very well do this to them a second time. So we'll see what adjustments come from Team in that game 2 draft. We are, as of right now, really only a few minutes away from it. So we will be stepping away for just a moment here, but when we return, the Game 2 draft will be getting underway. Can Team fight this one out and push this to a 3-game series, or will Infamous be able to live up to Panda's prediction and get themselves that 2-0 sweep? We'll find out in just a few minutes, so stick around. We'll be right back.